Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Healthy Mama Hacks. I'm Kristin Dovbniak, your host, and today is the episode many of you have been waiting for. We're going to talk about how I, as a former full-on caffeine addict, kicked the caffeine. Okay, I'll be honest. I will admit to you right now that I am not fully 100% off caffeine. I will have some caffeine from time to time. I usually have a little bit in the morning, but I have found my own tolerance for caffeine, and I have stayed in that place of very low caffeine for over a year now, which is pretty crazy because I used to drink 4 to 5 cups of coffee a day. 4 to 5. And we're not talking little tiny 6-ounce cups of coffee. We're talking mugs of coffee, ventis at Starbucks. Like if I actually added up the ounces, it would probably be, we would wonder how my heart is still working. Okay. That's the type of caffeine addiction that I had. I really needed it to get through my day. And I love coffee. That's the thing. Okay. I love it so much. It was part about the energy and part about the fact that I just love coffee. And so it was hard to give it up in the beginning because I love coffee. And so I'm going to share with you whether you're someone who likes coffee and doesn't want to give it up because they also enjoy it and just wants to reduce the amount of caffeine, which was me, or you're someone who just, you just want to reduce the caffeine for whatever reason it might be for you. And you're okay with getting rid of coffee. I'm going to give you advice for both of those. If you're not, super attached to coffee, you just drink it for the energy. So for me, the 2 reasons why I reduced caffeine significantly is number 1, my anxiety, and number 2, my hormones. So I actually asked Dr. Heather Rhodes, who is a friend and was on the podcast for 2 episodes last year. I'll link those in the show notes below. I asked her, I was like, honestly, caffeine, should I, shouldn't I? She's like, nope, there is nothing good about caffeine. I was like, oh man, because I have PCOS, and I say I have PCOS, but I'm certainly in remission from PCOS. I haven't had symptoms for several years now, thanks to Dr. Heather Rhodes, as well as some other practitioners I've worked with on managing my hormones and getting my hormones back into balance. But PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome, and I've had it since probably I was, somewhere in the vicinity of like middle school. And so I've had it for a long time and struggled with symptoms from it for a long time. And I don't think I realized how much my caffeine was affecting it until I took the caffeine away, and some symptoms that had started to pop up, because they will pop up from time to time in times of stress, how much it made a difference. So it definitely helps my hormone balance. And it also has made a significant difference with my anxiety. And if you listen to my anxiety hacks episode, kicking the caffeine was one of my anxiety hacks. So today I'm going to share with you exactly what I did to kick the caffeine when I kicked the caffeine about a year ago. So the biggest thing that helped me in kicking the caffeine was having a why that was strong enough to want to kick the caffeine. So when Dr. Heather was like, okay, it's not helping your hormones in any way, shape, or form, it's only hurting them, I was like, okay. And because I was feeling symptoms and I wanted to get my hormones back into balance, and I knew that that was something that was going to help. And then also, I was going through a really tough time in my life, and my anxiety was higher than it had been in years. And I knew I needed to do something about it, and I knew the caffeine was not helping me with it. So my number 1 tip for kicking the caffeine is having a reason. Okay, you've got to have a good reason to kick the caffeine, especially if you're someone like me who was drinking 4 to 5 cups of coffee a day. That might not be you. You might only be drinking 2 and you want to reduce to 1. That's okay, but why? Having that why is really going to help, because it's hard in the beginning. But you know what? Here's my second best piece of advice. Start slow. Slow. Like really slow. Slower than that. Okay? We do not want caffeine headaches. We don't want withdrawal. We want this to be a permanent thing. So we want to start slow. And I don't think, unless a doctor has told you need to stop drinking caffeine right now, or, you're pregnant and you're like, I'm drinking 5 cups of coffee a day, that's not going to fly. Maybe you need to kick it a little bit faster. But if you have the time to start slow and to go slow, go slow. Okay. So the way that I did it was to first and foremost reduce by replacing. So I was drinking 4 to 5 cups of coffee, and this was around my routine. It was almost like I've never smoked cigarettes, but it almost felt like a routine like that. You know how a lot of people, so I worked in the restaurant industry for a long time. So I'm just comparing this to people I know who smoked regularly. You know, it was like, okay, I've got a break in the morning, gonna have a cigarette then. I've got a lunch break, gonna have a cigarette then. I've got a break in the afternoon, gonna have a cigarette then. When I leave work, gonna have a cigarette then. It was literally like that with coffee for me. It was like, okay, I have my 2 cups of coffee in the morning, and then I have a mid-morning coffee, and then I have a mid-afternoon coffee, and then sometimes another afternoon coffee. So I literally had a routine around my coffee. So instead of just cutting them out, I replaced to start. So I replaced the latest coffee first. So I guess I technically reduced because I was like, all right, I set up my routine. I'm like, oh, when do I have coffee? And I cut myself off at a certain point, and I was like, all right, I will have up to 4 cups a day, and I'm going to replace my last cup with tea, and then I'll replace my 3rd cup with tea. And I started by replacing those cups and around my routine. So I kind of got into this cycle of replace, reduce, replace, where I replaced the cup of tea, and then I was like, okay, can I just eliminate this entirely? So at this point in time, I still have about 3 hot beverages a day. I usually have my one when I wake up, one mid-morning, and one in the afternoon, but only one of them, if any, has caffeine. So I replaced the ones that I was drinking regularly. I reduced any of the ones that I just didn't need to be a part of my routine anymore. And I found replacements that were enjoyable. So I first found replacements that had a little bit of caffeine in them, so I didn't have a super huge jolt of no more caffeine. So I didn't go cold turkey. So I started out by doing half calf. So I literally made up my own half calf blend. So I did, because I typically used a French press at that point. So I did half calf caffeinated, half decaf, and I started with half calf, and I started drinking that or black tea in the afternoons to give me that little afternoon boost I was looking for. And then eventually I cut out the caffeine in the afternoon. And I did the same thing for my mid-morning cup. And then, so it was half calf and then decaf, and then eventually no caffeine. And then the morning I did the same, and I did go no caffeine for about a period of like 3 months, I think it was, because my body really needed a reset. And because I went so slowly, I went from half calf to decaf, and I went 1 cup at a time. So 1 cup at a time, half calf first, then decaf, and then no caffeine for those first 2, and then no caffeine for any of them. When I did bring back a little bit of it, so a little bit of matcha, a little bit of black tea, like chai tea, or even a little bit of decaf coffee, or I can do up to 1 shot of espresso, which is about 60 milligrams of caffeine. I can do about 50 to 60 milligrams of caffeine a day, and I'm fine. Any more than that, and I notice my anxiety is high again. I haven't gotten to the point where I've noticed hormonal changes because it's enough for me, or it's not too much for me, I should say. So I've kind of found my limit, but I started really slow. So found my why, started really, really slow, 1 cup at a time, went from half calf to decaf. And then I started experimenting with different options for no caffeine. So obviously there's decaf, which still does have a tiny bit of caffeine in it. Herbal tea, but I didn't feel like herbal tea had the same. I do like herbal tea at night and in the afternoon now, but I didn't feel like herbal tea had the same sort of full-bodied, slightly acidic, like what I was looking for out of a warming mug of coffee. So that didn't necessarily work for me. What did work for me in the afternoons or in the mid-morning when I wanted something that felt like coffee other than decaf was Dandy Blend. I've been drinking Dandy Blend for years. I first discovered it in Toronto, when I was working at a holistic nutrition studio, and it's delicious. It's made from chicory root, and it literally tastes like coffee. It's kind of powdered, and you mix it with water, and so it's not chicory root. It's dandelion. Chicory root is ticino, which I'll talk about in a minute. But Dandy Blend is made from dandelion, which also means it has some positive effects for your liver as well. The other thing that I enjoy is ticino, which is made from chicory root. I don't know what I'm talking about. Ticino is also caffeine-free and made from chicory root, and I felt like both of those had enough of a coffee-type flavor for me that those worked really well as replacements. I also tried a couple other options. I tried rasa, which is a tea. They also have one that's mixed with a little bit of coffee. I didn't love that one. It's pretty good, but it wasn't my favorite. I also tried cryo brew, which is a cacao mixture, which I did enjoy the flavor of, but not my favorite, but by far, my favorite is mud water. I will tell you that mud water is not inexpensive. It's definitely, I was drinking enough coffee that it was basically a 1-for-1 with how much I was spending on coffee, but it's not inexpensive. But the thing I love about mud water, it has a very small amount of caffeine in it because it is made with some black tea. It's kind of like a chai tea. It also has turmeric in it. It has adaptogens in it and adaptogenic mushrooms in it. So it does give you a little bit of a boost without the caffeine. So cordyceps gives you a little bit of a boost. Lion's mane gives you a little bit of a focus boost. And I like the flavor of it too. I usually use a little bit of sweetener with it because it is a little bit bitter. And I'll make like a latte out of it with oat milk or almond milk, but I really love it. And so that's what I drink in the morning most mornings, because it's very, very low on caffeine. I will also drink matcha tea as well, like I said, because that's okay for me. But the other tip I have is that, and I mentioned this, is that I think I really needed to go a while without any caffeine to reset my body. Almost like a detox, but not in a crazy restrictive way. Remember, I very, very slowly reduced it. And then I was like, I think I need to go for a while. And once my body was used to not having caffeine, I didn't crave it. I didn't need it. I did go through a period of time where I was a little bit more tired. But over time, and not over a period of probably just a few weeks or so, I really started feeling a lot better and I didn't feel super tired anymore. And so I think your body does get used to it. Your body is capable of dealing without it, right? Caffeine is not a necessity to your body. So your body finds other ways to deal. So I needed to go without it for a few months before bringing it back in a very small way. And then I had to figure out my tolerance. So let me backtrack for a second, because I think when you go for a while without, you do need to start finding energy in other ways. So some of the things that I did to find energy in other ways are, number one, get more sleep or get enough sleep. So just going to bed at the same time every night as much as possible. Reading before bed instead of scrolling social media. Any of the sleep tips that Diane Macedo is shared with us in the sleep episode, really, really helpful. So getting better sleep, number one. We all know we could probably use better sleep, right? Or more sleep, or just sleep in general. And so that was really helpful. I don't nap, so I wasn't taking any naps or anything like that. Naps just don't work for me. So supporting my energy in that way, lots and lots of water, especially water with electrolytes. That was very, very helpful. At the time this episode airs, yes, I will have already shared my life update. And so if you listen to that, you know that I've been kind of obsessed with Element electrolytes because I've been going through kind of a time of stress lately. And in that time, in times of stress, your adrenals, when they are stressed, they need more electrolytes. And so I find the electrolytes help with my energy levels a lot. I also really like green juice. I'm talking like green juice, not green juice. Well, not fruit juice with a little bit of spinach that tastes like fruit juice, but actual green juice. I do find it gives me a good boost. I like drinking that on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. I do not make my own green juice. I drink a powdered green juice, not sponsored by any green juice companies. I just really enjoy it. I do have one that I'm trying out from a company, but, I've no affiliation with them as of now. So I'm just kind of trying a couple different brands out, and I really like doing that first thing in the morning. I find that gives me a nice energy boost without any caffeine. I also like doing movement in the morning or sometime during the day, but usually in the morning, I find that gives me a nice boost. And yeah, I don't want to say that that's not prescriptive, right? It's because some people, it just doesn't work to work out in the morning, but I find that it does help my energy levels throughout the day. So don't think I'm saying like you have to work out in the morning if you're trying to reduce caffeine, but that is something that worked for me. So I'm just sharing things that work for me. None of these are things you have to do. These are things that just helped me in my own journey. And last but not least, test and see your tolerance if you want to. If you want to bring back a small amount of caffeine, like for me, I really just wanted to be able to have an espresso from time to time, have a cup of decaf, or have a little bit of matcha. I found for me that 50 to 60 maximum milligram amount of caffeine is fine for me. I'm okay. It doesn't cause a spike in anxiety. It doesn't make me feel terrible. And I try to not drink more than that in the mornings, and then I don't drink caffeine after noon anymore, except on special occasions, if I have to drive or something like that, or a late cooking class. So I will from time to time have a little bit, but I'm very, very, very conscious about how much I have now because it has made such a big difference. It's not something that I put on myself as a restriction. You can't have any caffeine anymore, which is why I wanted to test and see my tolerance and see if I was okay with a little bit of it. Because I don't like to have anything restricted if I don't need to. So for me, that little tiny bit is enough that I can have a little bit from time to time. I don't feel left out, but I feel really good without it. And I can still go days without any caffeine and I'm totally fine. I'm not super low energy. I don't feel terrible. And I think that's a testament to going through this process of really reducing my caffeine, replacing, and being in a place where I can go without it and feel really good. And I'm really happy I did. So I hope these tips were helpful for you. I hope I gave you a couple ideas for replacements if you do want to replace the caffeine, if you want to reduce and replace. I'm not an expert on this by any means, but this is what worked for me. And hopefully this is a hack that you will take and use if you need it. So thank you again so much, friend, for listening. If you want to connect with me, find me over on Instagram at HealthyMamaChris. Share with me your favorite caffeine-free alternatives. Let me know if this episode helped you. I would love if you screenshotted this and share it with a friend who's trying to reduce their caffeine, and definitely connect with me. I always answer my DMs, so I'd love to hear from you. I hope you all have a beautiful weekend, and I will catch you in the next episode.